bet if you hop in the car and head for a drive, you can't get more than a few miles without seeing some sort of construction. Whether a new highway, house, or high-rise, all of these projects require digging. Interestingly enough, when you dig, you tend to find things in the ground. As you'll see, these following construction sites and projects all uncovered a range of rather unbelievable finds. One thing you don't need to go digging for is that subscribe button. Be sure to hit it and activate the notifications so you don't miss out on all of our great new releases. And on with the show. The time capsule. Odds are you know what a time capsule is. It's usually a box or a container which is filled with objects relevant to the time you live in. The hope is that someone in the future will dig up the capsule and marvel at all the old items stored inside. If you enjoy scouring the land with a metal detector, then there's a chance you've come across one. If you've gone through public school, there's a good chance at one time or another your class had a time capsule project, and that box is now buried somewhere on the school property. In the Scottish town of Kingussie, construction workers found their very own time capsule. You see, when they were replacing an old bridge, they found a metal box. Intrigued, they did what any of us would have done and opened it up. Inside were some pretty interesting finds. First, the age of the time capsule was revealed thanks to a newspaper from 1894. Along with several other pieces of paper, they also found a bottle containing whiskey. Considering how much a 20-year-old bottle of whiskey costs, we can only imagine what this 120-year-old specimen would go for. A warship? If you're looking for newly discovered items from America's earliest history and before, then we suggest you get over to Alexandria, Virginia. While digging to prepare a site for a new hotel, construction workers first uncovered the foundation of a warehouse dating from the mid-18th century. Then, a couple months later, they unearthed the distinctive bow of a wooden ship. Further excavation proved that this was indeed a ship dating back to the time of the American Revolution. Though only 50 feet of the ship remained, experts said it was very well preserved. In fact, it is believed that the vessel was originally 150 feet long and that the rest of it had been disassembled to be used in other construction projects going on in the city in the late 1700s. So, just what kind of ship are we talking about here? Researchers suggest that the sturdy build quality and the design of the vessel likely make it one of two types of ship. First, it could have been a cargo ship used to transport heavy goods. The other realistic possibility is that this is the remains of a warship, which could very well have seen action during the earliest days of American history. Renovation jackpot. Not all construction projects are massive affairs, and not all unexpected discoveries involve massive ships or historical artifacts. But even the smallest projects can uncover rather valuable items. One Fresno, California jewelry shop proves this. Way back around 2008, the Warner Company jewelry store closed its doors for good. Owner Casey Stephenson was done with the business and likely looking forward to retirement. Fast forward several years, and new owner Tim Jones hired a construction team to come in and renovate the structure for a new business. Interestingly, as the walls were being knocked down, workers found multiple envelopes hidden away. Any guesses as to what was inside of these envelopes? You're right, a pile of diamonds. The number and value of the diamonds is known by Jones, but he refused all requests for details when the media tracked him down. Naturally, the family of the late former owner of the store were interested in getting their property back, and we're sure the lawyers will be pretty busy figuring out who gets the secret Fresno diamond stash. After all, in such cases, contracts rarely outline what is to be done with property discovered long after the business trades hands. The mummy returns again. When it comes to mummies, you probably fall into one of two camps. On the one hand, you could be the type of person who thinks they are pretty cool and an awesome link to the distant past. On the other hand, you might be someone who is creeped out by these preserved bodies and thinks that they could come to life at any moment like an ancient zombie. Thankfully, despite what Hollywood has shown us, there are no cases of mummies reanimating. But there are many cases of very cool mummy specimens being found. One road crew in China found this out in dramatic fashion. While doing some construction work in eastern China, workers uncovered a mummified corpse. No ordinary mummy, this corpse dated back 700 years to the Ming Dynasty. The woman was so well preserved that experts could easily pick out everything from jewelry to shoes to even her eyelashes. Judging by the quality of the mummy's clothing and overall excellent condition, it is believed that this woman was a high-ranking figure in society during her lifetime. In fact, archaeologists say that the techniques used to preserve this mummy indicate her funeral was also likely very high profile. Creepy find. Imagine going out in your backyard and digging a hole. You could be digging this hole for millions of reasons. Perhaps you need to plant a tree, or maybe you work for the mob and that hole is required for a completely different matter, if you know what we mean. In all seriousness, one homeowner was excavating his backyard when he came across a disturbing surprise. New Orleans resident Vincent Marcello had hired a crew to excavate a swimming pool in his backyard. Marcello was no fool, however. Living in the French Quarter, he knew there was a good chance his property was near or on a graveyard. So when experts started digging, he wasn't overly surprised. Just 4 feet down, shovels struck wood. A few more minutes of digging soon revealed that the location of Marcello's planned pool was also the resting ground for 15 coffins. Unable to get heavy equipment into the area, workers had to remove the 600-plus pound waterlogged coffins from the ground by hand. By the end of it all, the coffins and bodies were sent for testing, and Marcello can now claim his backyard is home to a pool and not 15 skeletons. Okay, time for our quiz. All this talk of cemeteries has us wondering, do you know the number of official national cemeteries in the United States? It's a pretty high number, and we'll tell you the answer after these following entries. Mammoth discoveries. When you think of Seattle, you likely think of Starbucks, the NFL Seahawks, the birthplace of grunge music, and the home of the iconic Space Needle. Long before any of those existed, the area was also known for something else. Thousands of years ago, the Pacific Northwest was home to an animal known as the Columbian mammoth. Although not as famous as their woolly counterpart, Columbian mammoths were actually bigger and rivaled present-day African elephants. In any event, when construction crews were working on an apartment development site in Seattle, they uncovered something strange. Carefully excavating around the object, they discovered it was a massive 8-foot 6-inch tusk from a mammoth. It is the largest one ever uncovered in the area. Paleontologists who looked at the tusk estimated its age to be at least 16,000 years old. However, once official examination is done, that age could easily go as high as 60,000 years old. After this discovery, we bet any future construction projects in the Seattle area pay extra attention to the ground whenever they begin a new project. A tank. War, unfortunately, is the one constant throughout human history. From Caesar to Napoleon to today's leaders, disputes and failed negotiations often result in people turning to violence in order to solve a problem. Generations of conflict have left their marks on humanity, our history, and our landscape. In fact, certain areas have seen so much war over previous generations that evidence of battle is all over. Whether bullet-marked buildings or cemeteries, the evidence of war is everywhere. In Germany, this is especially true. Involved in 2 world wars in modern history, as well as seeing numerous battles throughout its ancient past, German construction crews are always unearthing evidence of battle. Take, for instance, a construction crew near the northern city of Rostock. During work, they unearthed the turret of a Soviet T-34 tank from World War II. Inside, they found human remains and a lot of ammunition and grenades. So, where's the rest of the tank? Researchers believe the base of the tank is buried somewhere on the other side of the road. In all likelihood, the tank was involved in an attack, was hit, and exploded. That would have thrown the turret across the road, leaving the undiscovered section somewhere else. Viking burial. 1,000 years ago, England was plagued by a seaborne threat we bet many are glad isn't around today. If you lived back then, you could be minding your own business on any given day when out of the blue a swarm of Viking raiders attacked. With their weapons, terrifying war paint, and tendency to loot, kidnap, and burn stuff, we're glad we live in modern times. However, evidence of this terrifying and violent past was discovered in the coastal English town of Weymouth. In preparation for a planned roadway, archaeologists started digging along the proposed route and made a huge and disturbing discovery. At one location, a large grave was uncovered with the remains of over 50 people. Analysis showed these were all Scandinavian Vikings. Shockingly, they had all been decapitated. How do we know? Well, first, the heads were in a separate pile. However, analysis of the bones showed significant damage and wounds consistent with someone being hacked with a sword or axe. Since there were no clothes found in the grave, it is believed that these men had been captured and stripped before meeting a rather unpleasant and bloody end. Yikes. Unexploded bombs. Between 1939 and 1945, Europe was ravaged by the Second World War, the most destructive conflict in human history. In addition to the fact whole cities were flattened and millions lost their lives, the war saw the first large-scale use of bombers. As a result, Countless bombs were dropped, which did not explode and merely stayed in the ground, waiting to be discovered. From England to Russia, it's unfortunately all too common to find old ammunition in areas that you would least expect it, such as the downtown of a modern European capital. A construction crew in Belgrade found this out when they unearthed a 1-ton German bomb that had been sitting silently 20 feet underground for the last 70 years. Containing over 600 kilograms of high explosives, this bomb possessed more than enough power to flatten all the buildings around it. If you think that's bad, then the bomb discovered during the construction in the German city of Augsburg was even worse. In this instance, the British bomb weighed in at nearly 2 tons and required anyone within a mile to evacuate. Fortunately, in both cases, bomb disposal crews disarmed the old explosives and disposed of them safely. A king. Okay, so a few of our previous entries have construction crews digging up old graves or even finding VIP mummies. Imagine, however, digging into the ground and finding an English king. That's what happened in Leicester when a team dug into a car park and found the remains of Richard III. So, just who was this king? Well, Richard III was king for just 2 years between 1483 and 1485. He met his end on the battlefield at the Battle of Bosworth Field. In fact, after examining his body, experts found several wounds on his body, including serious damage to his skull, which is likely what ended up leading to his demise. In addition to a fatal blow to the head, Richard's remains answered some other questions which had troubled historians. For instance, it turns out he wasn't a hunchback, and he actually had blue eyes and fair-colored hair. That differs greatly from most images found in history books. Additionally, researchers could even figure out that he dined on peacock and heron because of certain isotopes found in his remains. And one last disgusting fact that was uncovered was that King Richard also had a case of worms. Yuck. So, any guesses as to how many national cemeteries there are in the United States? The answer: 147. Yes, U.S. national cemeteries were established in 1867 after the Civil War, and since then, across the country, nearly 150 have been established. Well, that's all from us for this video, guys. It kind of makes us wonder what we'd find in our backyard if we just started digging today. Anyways, if you found this video interesting, then try checking out our other releases, including one about strange finds during home renovations. As always, before you head out with that shovel to start looking for treasure, be sure to subscribe and activate those notifications. We'll be sure to see you next time. Bye-bye for now.